The world today is globalizing, and in these conditions, the country's development prospects are more than ever closely linked with Russia's foreign policy. Its goal is to ensure the development of the country. The more successful the course towards strengthening Russian economic and, in general, state independence, the more confident we can act in the international arena, the more effectively we will be able to benefit from communication with foreign partners. Here, there is a direct mutual connection that ensures the effectiveness of work, if it is approached honestly and professionally. Not all over the world the development of Russia is perceived with pleasure in the course that has been determined and is now being implemented. Not everyone likes that we have long and forever overcome the difficulties of those same dashing 90s and effectively solve the problems that have been accumulating for years, if not decades. While doing this within the country, we are simultaneously strengthening our international positions. Our greatest achievement, the preservation of civil peace, the consolidation of society around the moral values of the peoples of Russia, respect for the memory of ancestors, their deeds in defense of the freedom and independence of the motherland, education of young people in the spirit of the continuity of generations. Indeed, Western colleagues do not hide this. Many of them would prefer to deal with a weak Russia, devoid of guidance, ready to make any concessions. We see attempts to influence our domestic and foreign policy almost every day. The set of tools that Western colleagues use is quite wide. These are military provocations, as was the case recently off the coast of Crimea with NATO ships. By the way, they are heading here, to the South China Sea, so the scope of their ambitions knows no boundaries. In the same row, illegitimate economic sanctions, the kidnapping of our citizens abroad with the presentation of claims that should be regulated by international treaties, but the West neglects them, and large-scale information attacks. I want to say with full responsibility that the scenario hatched by the West will not work. The President of the Russian Federation has repeatedly spoken about this. The last time he warned those who are trying to talk to us in this way in his address to the Federal Assembly, warning that the organizers of any provocations against us will regret it. A number of steps have been taken to strengthen our independence and independence. A huge role in these actions was played by the amendments to the Constitution, which were approved by a popular vote in July last year. They suggest, along with the consolidation of socioeconomic guarantees for the population within the framework of the Basic Law, clear principles for the development of key institutions of the state and civil society, serious additional steps that have a direct foreign policy projection. I would like to note the historical continuity of our state, recorded in the Constitution. The protection of the country's territorial integrity has been brought to a fundamentally new level. This was actively debated here in the Far East during the discussion of the amendments. From now on, the inadmissibility of any actions aimed at alienating part of the territory of the Russian Federation, or calls for such actions, is clearly defined. The new wording of the Constitution also establishes the priority of our fundamental law over international law. I want to clarify what this is about. Many, including here in Russia, are trying to accuse us of some kind of legal nihilism in an attempt to get away from the principles and norms of cooperation in the world arena. Nothing like this. We fully respect international law, conventions and treaties, but only in the form in which Russia has joined them. If Russia accedes to an international treaty, this is done through ratification by the Federal Assembly, in the State Duma, in the Federation Council, then it goes to the President for signature, if required with the opinion of the Constitutional Court. And when such a ratification has taken place, this international treaty becomes part of our legislation, in full compliance with the Constitution. But when an intergovernmental body created by this, or that treaty begins to make decisions, to put forward claims to us on the basis of certain procedures that are not written in the treaty itself, and violate its essence, then we reserve the right not to carry out such decisions. Let me emphasize once again that they are illegitimate. They directly contradict the treaty itself, the provision of which such interstate structures allegedly want to implement. There are increasing attempts to rewrite our past, revise the results of the Second World War, belittle the country's role in the defeat of Nazism, and put the Soviet Union and Hitlerite Germany on the same level. Therefore, an amendment to the Constitution on the inadmissibility of distorting the historical truth, belittling the heroic deed of the people, in defending the fatherland is especially timely. We, the heirs of the great victories, consistently proceed from the continuity of the centuries-old single chronicle of the motherland. We cherish the heritage of our ancestors, earned at a very, very expensive price. As you know, Russia's foreign policy is determined by the head of state. This most important constitutional provision remains unshakable. The steps that we are taking in the international arena do not depend on electoral cycles, as is often the case with many Western countries, do not depend on fluctuations in the political or any other conjuncture. The foreign policy line approved by the President of the Russian Federation V.V. Putin is of a long-term, strategically verified character. This is our significant competitive advantage, which helps to increase Russia's prestige in the world, strengthens its image as a reliable, predictable, strong and fair partner, who keeps his word and deserves trust. On this basis, we are expanding our ties with the overwhelming majority of foreign countries, in Eurasia, Latin America, Africa, including with the closest allies, and like-minded people in the CSTO, CIS, EU, SCO, BRICS. Collectively, we are talking about countries representing more than 80% of the world's population. Any unbiased person understands that there is no question of any isolation of Russia, which our Western colleagues are trying to repeat. Moreover, the ranks of our friends are constantly growing, although the United States and its allies are actively trying to prevent this.